Part 74. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 731. Chapter 731. A dog can't change its habit of eating shit. As she said that, Jess couldn't help but show hopeful eyes. Therefore, every year in the evening of mid-September, the Lord of Millida holds a spectacular and beautiful fireworks show. Oh, mid-September, mid-September. After saying this, Suchen stood up immediately. Damn it, I almost forgot, the day to collect the money is here. Jess looked at Suchen running out impatiently, feeling strange, and then thought about it. Could this guy be hiding on purpose? Just think of it yourself. Thinking of this, Jess became angry again. Turning around, she saw Salai's face turned red and asked strangely, Sister Salai, what's wrong? What did your bad guy brother do? He ran so fast that he would starve to death and be reincarnated. Salai heard Suchen talking about midterm and closing. Qian remembered the Drake voice that day and the way Brother Xiaodong lectured people. Seeing Jess asking her, she hesitated and didn't know what to say. Suchen disappeared in a flash. As soon as he left the gate of Kabul's house, he was replaced by a shopper and came to the east of the city. He looked at the gate of the east of the city and thought, something is wrong. So instead of rushing out, I squatted down in front of a street stall and pretended to look at something. It's definitely not possible to go like this. I still don't know how the male duck voice will decide in the end. Whether to bring people or not, whether to be willing to give money in exchange for life or to set a trap, we need to take a closer look. Don't be hasty now, and take your time to prepare the sweet-smelling antidote. Suchen asked the stall owner, Uncle, is there a hut near here? I'm anxious. Suchen followed the uncle's directions to the hut. Pooh. Is it really him? It stinks. Forget it, I will suffer a little loss, and this kid will be advantaged. Yeah, that Drake's voice had better be honest, otherwise I'll do it directly. Suchen pinched a small ball of mud, took 2 branches to hold the mud ball, and poked it in the manure tank. He felt that it was not flavorful enough, so he left it in the manure tank for a while. The adults next to him looked at the half-grown mud ball. The child didn't pay attention, he was probably shopping for it. Suchen covered his nose and laughed, letting the scented antidote dry on the ground, found a piece of oil paper and wrapped it carefully, and kept it with the people who came in and out of the door. Like the common people, he took his time and walked out of the east gate. Suchen walked out of the east gate, turned into the woods, and used his excellent hunter reconnaissance and counter reconnaissance to move around in the relatively dense woods. After a while, he found 2 people standing there. On the outside of the woods against the east city wall. Taking a closer look, one of them is the male duck voice, but his figure is obviously much tired. This is for sure. The biggest sign of a man is useless. How can he not be sluggish? But the person on the other side of the male duck's throat made Suchen a little shocked. It was Uncle Fuan's youngest son Shivlin. Birds of a feather flock together, and dogs can't change their eating habits. Suchen was puzzled. I was warned last time. It's best not to bring anyone with this male duck voice. It seems that this guy is not honest, but bringing Shilin is useful. Suchen doesn't dare to be careless. This male duck voice is an honest man, he fell into the trap when he was frightened. But there was no guarantee that the elders in his family were evil spirits. If such a person really came to punish him, his life would be directly involved. Suchen approached the man, hiding in the woods without making a sound, suddenly said in a deep voice, Spellin came alone. The sudden deep sound from behind startled both Drake and Shivlin. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 732. Chapter 732. I feel like I'm flying. After being stunned for a long time, the male duck voice was a little scared and a little hopeful. He poked his most loyal dog on campus, Shivlin, and said in a trembling voice. Quick, go quick. Don't talk nonsense, even if you are beaten half to death, you have to get the antidote back to me. Sperrin was equally scared. This was the first time he had done such a thing. Although it was not that he had never been forced to do dangerous things by this unscrupulous boss before, there were more people waving flags and shouting behind him. He is proud of his reputation. The boss only took him with him today, and judging from the look on the boss's face, he is a ruthless character this time. He might become the same as the boss. But he must obey the boss's orders. Shivlin, I know the distinguished life experience of the male duck voice. Don't look at the fact that the male duck voice doesn't look like a child of a big noble family. That's because of the traitorous character of the male duck voice. And he usually does all kinds of bad things and is quite satisfied with his own appetite. Drake's voice's family members did not dare to show off to him directly, for fear that they would not be able to disgrace this person. But this time, the fact that Drake's voice became a eunuch shocked his entire family and made him extremely angry. This is a special place in history. Lin walked into the wood slowly and fearfully. He was kicked by a drake in the back before he moved into the woods. As soon as he entered the woods, Shivlin felt a black shadow flash in front of his eyes. Then his mouth was covered. The body was carried and flew quickly into the forest. Yes, Shilin felt like he was flying. The speed was so fast that he looked at the oncoming tree trunk several times and shook it with a whoosh. Shivlin was so frightened that he almost lost control. When he stopped, he was thrown to the ground. Unsteady and rolled twice, Shivlin stood up in embarrassment. When we came together, we saw him. Shivlin was frightened to death by the person in front of him. Wasn't this the demon Suchen who had always bullied him in his hometown in Balutown? Suchen looked at his wretched appearance and snorted disdainfully. This familiar voice couldn't help but make Shivlin tremble. He thought he had finally escaped from the devil's claws and followed the drake-voiced boss to be so majestic, but he didn't want to fall into the hands of the king of hell again. Belin was so sad and angry that his legs suddenly became weak and he knelt down. Suchen kicked Shivlin down. For the sake of the mayor, Suchen didn't want to humiliate this scumbag. This weakling still did it to his father. Kneel down. Suchen just stared at Shivlin without saying a word. Sure enough, Shivlin couldn't bear the dull depression and collapsed first, crawled to Suchen's side and cried tremblingly. Boss Suchen. I didn't do anything bad this time, I just came here with the boss. No, I just came here with that guy to get the antidote. Really, I didn't do anything, please spare me, woo. Suchen really couldn't bear to be so cowardly, and asked, is that male duck voice really just here to get medicine? What's going on with his family? Shivlin was stunned for a moment and then came to his senses. The drake voice Suchen mentioned must be the boss outside. He quickly wiped his nose and tears and said, yes, that drake-voiced guy just asked me to come with him to get the medicine. He really didn't bring anyone else. I've been following him for a few months and I know he's just a pustule. He's afraid of death. He'll let me do anything dangerous. Go on, let me take the blame for whatever it is, but I am extremely stingy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 733. Chapter 733, Gold Card of 5,000 Gold Coins. Okay, I'm not interested in knowing your history of suffering. Please tell me about his family's situation. Suchen interrupted impatiently. Yes, that drake's name is Xiaojianren Charlie. He is the third-generation eldest grandson of the Charlie family, one of the 4 major families in Millida. Although he has a prominent position, his family did not take him seriously. They gave him little money and no capable followers. A few. I really don't know why this Drake voice is always so arrogant. It's really a reincarnation of a pustule. Suchen didn't care what Shivlin said next. A Charlie family made Suchen scream inwardly, but he didn't expect that this male duck voice, that is, Xiaojianren Charlie, was actually the eldest grandson of the third generation of the Charlie family. Even though their family doesn't take this guy seriously. But if such a shameful thing happened to their family, it would probably be like Suchen giving them a slap in the face. Suchen felt that this matter was not that simple. Charlie's family was one of the four major families in Millida. Although Millida can only be regarded as a second-rate city in the entire Guth Empire. But for Suchen personally, the Charlie family is still a behemoth, and he can't beat it. People here are not all idiots. On the contrary, just like Blue Star in the previous life, smart people are everywhere, but most of them have little knowledge and are short-sighted. Suchen didn't think that he had unparalleled talents in the world. All he had was the unique skills of a hunter passed down from his father, coupled with the recently discovered half-baked spiritual magic. Although I generally don't like to use my brain and like to go with my fists and come back with my fists, I can't go head-to-head with those big families now. Suchen secretly decided, I want to practice magic crazily, and I can't stop being idle. The only way to ensure the survival of myself and my family is to ensure the survival of myself and my family. Suchen threatened Shivlin a few more times. Seeing that what this guy said must be true, he took him back to Xiaojianren, a dear friend. Xiaojianren was waiting in a hurry. Just these few days of living as a pseudo-man, he who was arrogant and proud all the time, bullying men and women, was tortured to the point of being like a human being or a ghost. I have finally waited for this day, feeling anxious and full of hope. If this guy knew that the antidote that Suchen was going to give him was extracted from the cesspool with Suchen's hard work, he would probably collapse immediately. Without saying a word, Suchen threw Shivlin beside Xiaojianren and said lightly, "Where's the money? This money is the most important thing for Suchen to come here." Xiaojianren was threatened by his family to bring a large bag of gold coins to redeem the antidote. But Xiaojianren himself is a real person in terms of his body. He is an honest man. No matter how much he thinks about it, he feels that this big bag of gold coins looks like a lot, but is actually too little. This is Xiaojianren's own opinion. If Suchen knew about it, he would definitely have to hug him and kiss him twice. He must offend this evil star. If he is not happy, he will be miserable for the rest of his life. Although Xiaojianren is a pustule, he also knows that everyone in his family dislikes him. Even the nursing home where he is raised does not treat him very well, and Xiaojianren has long had resentment. This time, his family asked him to bring so few gold coins. Xiaojianren was angry, but he didn't dare to explode. He worked hard to extort, rob, and borrow money, and he moved here and there, including a package of ransoms given by his family, all of which were exchanged for a gold card worth 5,000 gold coins is still ownerless. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 734. Chapter 734 The Wind Mage Zez takes action. This gold card is a unique product of this magical world, just like Blue Star's bank card, but it is more convenient than the bank card and there is no problem of password theft. Because this gold card is actually a magic card. As long as the holder concentrates a little bit of mental energy and looks at the gold card will recognize its owner. Unless it is destroyed, it is impossible for others to use this gold card to withdraw money from major banks without the owner's permission. Although the 5,000 gold coins in this gold card were all the money Xiaojianren had at the moment, Xiaojianren still felt uneasy with this card in his arms. He complained in his heart that although he was the eldest grandson, he was looked down upon everywhere at home like a beggar. When Xiaojianren heard Suchen asked about money, he quickly took out the gold card from his arms and handed it over with what he thought was the most flattering smile. Suchen looked at this guy's disgusted expression, curiously took the gold card with a faint magical aura, and was about to ask what this thing was for. Suddenly a strong magical aura came over. Suchen was shocked and screamed secretly. After running a few steps, I felt that my whole body was tightly wrapped by a flexible air current, and I couldn't move at all. Suchen suddenly felt a chill in his heart. It was over. Even if he didn't die, he would have half his life left. No need to ask, it must be the ambush master of Charlie's family. Now he is the fish on the chopping board. The only thing that can save his life is the ethereal antidote. Snort. You must be Suchen who saved the Carl family last time. As expected, heroes come from young. A majestic old man shouted coldly from behind Suchen, but at this time Suchen's back was turned to him and he couldn't see who was attacking him. Grandpa Zez. Xiaojianren was shocked and couldn't help but feel deep fear in his voice. This old man named Zez has white hair and is the only mage in the Mick and Charlie family alliance who can rival Kabul. He is the famous wind mage in Millida. Zez didn't look at this loser who was embarrassing the Charlie family. The Charlie family had long since found out about Suchen, especially the failure of the subsequent operation to kill the Carl family, which delayed the half-grown boy at the most critical moment. But Suchen has been staying at Kabul's house for the past 2 days, and not even his family members have shown up. This time, the highly respected Magi Zez of the Charlie family deliberately laid an ambush on the high city wall just to catch Suchen. It was best to kill him. Because Zez felt a strong threat from this boy. At such a young age, he could kill a swordsman by force, even defeat a great swordsman, and later even receive a full blow from the swordsman Mad Bull without dying. It's hard to imagine how far this little guy will grow in the end. If we don't kill him now, it will be much later. But his good-for-nothing grandson is more likely to fail than succeed. Originally, I wanted the big bag of heavy gold coins to make the boy hesitate whether to take the money and run away, or leave the money and leave. As long as this kid dares to take money, not to mention the weight of 1,000 gold coins, with his strength as a wind magician, it won't take much effort to kill him. Even if this kid left the money and left in the end, Zez didn't believe that this poor kid could not hesitate. No matter what, in the end the money will return to your own pocket. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 735. Chapter 735 Spiritual Collision. Extreme Counterattack. But this pustular grandson completely defeated his plan. You were so stupid that you gave me a gold card. Zez was so angry that he almost vomited blood. How could our Charlie family have given birth to such a scoundrel? The minimum deposit for this gold card is 2,000 gold coins. Their family is only a second-rate family, and their annual income from all their properties is only 30,000 to 40,000 gold coins. If Zizi knew that Xiaojianren gave Suchen 5,000 gold coins, I wonder what the old guy was thinking. Zizi turned Suchen around, and Suchen finally saw the old guy. At first glance, he turned out to be an old man with a kind face and a kind face. At this moment, his face was gloomy and his piercing eyes were fixed on Suchen. Suchen was horrified. No matter what rank this old guy is, the divine light in his eyes actually makes me feel dazzling. Suchen still knows some common sense about magic. The more advanced magicians are, the stronger their mental power is. When they stare at someone, the mental power overflowing from their eyes will be extremely dazzling and even frightening. Suchen didn't dare to look into his eyes and waited quietly. The only useful thing now is that this old guy probably doesn't know that he knows mental magic. If he suddenly uses the improved spiral cone magic to attack, I don't know if it will be effective. This old guy is so perverted, and the pressure he puts on himself is just like Grandpa Kabul. My God, he is also a magician. Suchen couldn't move, and there was already a cold sweat on his back. Zeth saw the opportunity and swooped down from the city wall using his wind magic. Capturing the potential threat to the family in one fell swoop was the moment when Zez relaxed his mind. Originally, Zez was not very worried about Suchen escaping. In his opinion, Suchen was just a warrior with better skills. Now that I can't restrain it, there is no threat. This little baby is not allowed to be slaughtered by me. Snort. Zez shouted coldly, stared at Suchen with lowered eyebrows and sneered. Boy, you should feel honored that it was my wind mage, Zeth, who killed you. I won't talk nonsense to you. Is there an antidote? As he spoke, the air suddenly surged from Zizi's left hand, and it instantly formed a half-moon-shaped wind blade, moving rapidly above Zizi's left hand. After all, Xiaojianren is still the eldest grandson of the Charlie family. If he is a eunuch in the future, living a normal life, I still have to be laughed to death. Suchen secretly sneered, are you scaring me? If I were really a little boy over 12 years old, I would have cried for father and called mother. What a pity. Have. Yes, I have it. You, don't kill me, I'll give you the antidote right now. Suchen looked panic-stricken, and tremblingly took out an oil paper bag from his waist, and handed it to Zez tremblingly. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and his wrinkled face relaxed, and he stretched out his right hand to take the oil paper bag. At this moment, Suchen looked at Zez fiercely, and a dazzling light suddenly burst out from his eyes. A dazzling bright yellow light was almost visible to the naked eye and hit Zez's eyes. Although Zez was a little wary, he never thought about this. The boy actually had a mental collision like Carl. The powerful mental power allowed him to clearly see a spiraling mental power with an extremely sharp front end rushing towards him. Because the two were too close to each other, less than 2 feet apart, Zeth couldn't even make it in time. Send out the wind blade in your hand. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 736. Chapter 736, beat the old mage to death with a violent punch. The mental shock that came at high speed crashed into his mind. It actually felt like my eyes were being stung by something real, and my mind was like thousands of bells ringing, and I was in a trance. Suchen saw that he lost control of the restraints and tried his best to break free. Zez's wind blade brushed past Suchen's scalp uncontrollably, causing Suchen to get goosebumps. Suchen didn't escape. He couldn't escape from the wind mage, and his mental collision didn't have much effect on him. Without hesitation, Suchen twisted his body from his legs to his waist and concentrated all his strength on his right hand. The threat of death caused Suchen's huge strength to explode instantly, and all the strength in his body was concentrated in his right fist. The simplest and most effective way was to punch Zeth directly in front of him. Zez's brain was shaken by Suchen's mental impact, and he soon came to his senses. When he regained consciousness, he saw an iron-like fist rushing towards his head. Zez also exploded instantly. Between life and death, the 80-year-old old mage used all his strength to gather a magic shield, and a thin wind shield was raised before Suchen's fist reached his forehead. Although the shield was formed hastily, it actually caused Suchen to pause for a moment before he hit his fist with all his strength. But Suchen's punch was too heavy. Although the impact force was reduced by nearly 70% after passing through the shield, it finally hit the forehead of Magi Zeth. There was a sudden bang and Zeth fell down. Suchen was unyielding and took advantage of the situation and rushed towards Zez. For a moment, Zez was hit hard on the head. What was just a bang sound turned into the sound of a punch in ketchup. Suchen stopped his crazy attack, looked back, and was shocked. In the madness of the death threat, he actually beat the old magister's head to pieces. Suchen looked at the headless corpse and gave a trembling drink and hurriedly took a few steps back. Looking at the white or red sticky substance on his right fist, he suddenly felt his stomach churn. Suchen had never killed anyone before. He had killed 2 swordsmen when he rescued Karl, but the situation was so urgent that he had no time to think about it. At this moment, this cruel scene was actually caused by himself, and Suchen suddenly felt dizzy. But years of experience in fighting wild beasts allowed Suchen to survive. No matter how cruel human killings are, they are not as cruel as fighting between wild beasts or between wild beasts and humans. Suchen and his father Dudley had seen a lot of cracked brains or leaked internal organs. It was just the first time that I personally felt a living person's head being smashed by me, and I still couldn't help but feel a little strange in my heart. Suchen shook his head and looked at Xiaojianren, who was not far away. The fight between Zez and Suchen actually lasted only half a minute, and most of the time was occupied by Suchen's crazy attack at the end. When Suchen, whose body was covered with blood or brain matter, looked at Xiaojianren, Xiaojianren passed out immediately. This kind of scene was not something this pustule could bear. Shivlin had also lost control long ago. He fell to the ground and muttered something randomly, his eyes already dull. Suchen kept doing nothing, stepped forward and twisted Xiaojianren's head 180 degrees. Looking at the lost Shivlin, he took off Xiaojianren's clothes and hastily wiped the dirt on his body and face. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 737. Chapter 737 Qualitative Change. Reborn. He turned around and went to Zez's body, searched for a while, and found something. Without even looking, he took off his outer clothes and packed them randomly, pulled off his bloody pants and shoes, and rushed to Kabul's house. Suchen was in a trance all the way, and his running legs seemed to be not his own, moving mechanically like that. Suchen couldn't bear the fight against Zeth this time. Most of the people on the road who smelled the smell of blood in the air left behind by Suchen who was running past him stayed away, and no one went to the city lord's mansion to report. Only the spies of the 4 major families noticed. Suchen ran back to Kabul's home and ran into his own courtyard. He ignored the greetings from others along the way, and he didn't even hear the questions from Salai and her mother. I went directly to the bathtub, filled it with cold water, and soaked directly in it. My head sank into the slightly cold water, and I gradually woke up. Suchen thought about the process of Dongmen beating Zez to death. Although the process was short, the scenes were clearly replayed in his mind. It wasn't until I felt suffocated in the water that my head came out with a whoosh. Suchen stared blankly at the polished floor, and it took him a while to come back to his senses. Then he lowered his mind and fell into deep meditation. Dudley's father knew when Suchen just rushed in that his son had killed someone outside. Dudley did not stop Suchen, but also stopped his wife and Silly who were looking for Suchen. He did not answer their questions, but just looked at the door of the courtyard quietly, waiting for Suchen to come out of his meditation. When I woke up, it was already half dark. Suchen soaked in the water for a day, and his skin was wrinkled. Suchen stood up, took a bath towel, dried his body, wrapped himself in a clean big bath towel and walked out. At this time, Suchen's eyes had regained clarity, and his calm eyes seemed to be shining with determination and confidence. As soon as Suchen opened the door, he saw a room full of people, both familiar and unknown. Salai was the first to rush over, her face full of worry turned into joy, hugging Suchen tightly and shedding tears. Suchen gently patted Salai's little head, feeling warm in his heart. Yes, no matter how dangerous or bloody it is outside, when you get home, holding your beloved and looking at your relatives who care about you, everything is possible and everything is worth it. This home will be shielded from the wind and rain outside by myself, and it will be shouldered by myself. Suchen smiled and said softly. Okay, be good, and don't cry. There are so many people watching outside. Sally then remembered that there were so many people around her, and immediately stood up from Suchen's arms. Her face turned red to her ears, and she lowered her head, only to find that Suchen was still wrapped in a bath towel, and she quickly said, I'll get you some clothes. Everyone. Suchen said with a smile to a large group of people standing in the room, young man, can you please let me change my clothes first, and then come and talk to everyone? Everyone laughed in agreement, and Mr. Kabul stood up and said with a smile, little brother Suchen, go ahead and fill your stomach first before chatting with us. Mr. Kabul's attitude was a little more solemn. Suchen smiled lightly, said goodbye to everyone and went back to the bedroom. Sally was folding the pile of clothes. When she saw Suchen coming, her face turned red and she said to Suchen, said brother Xiaodong, the clothes are ready, you should put them on quickly, the weather is getting colder now. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 738. Chapter 738 Suchen, should be the protagonist. Suchen looked at Silly's cute look and couldn't help pinching Silly's little nose. Silly gently patted Suchen's hand away, trying to pretend to be angry but unable to hide the joy of her beloved falling in love with her. Suchen walked over to that station and said, Silly, please change my clothes. Silly patted Suchen and said angrily, brother Chen, change your clothes quickly, what are you talking about? If you don't change it for me, I'll take off my bath towel. Suchen said rogue, putting his hands on the mouth of the bath towel, making a gesture to take it off. Silly's white neck was dyed a light pink, and she said anxiously, you, brother Chen, you, don't. Suchen looked at Silly's cute look and stopped teasing her. He laughed and said to her, okay, my little Silly, get some food for brother Chen. I'm starving to death. Silly's beautiful eyes glared at Suchen and said angrily, brother Chen, you are bullying me. After saying that, he skipped to the kitchen. Suchen looked at Silly's figure, smiled with satisfaction, and put on his clothes. Suchen knew why the large number of people outside who he knew or didn't know came to his place. In a second-rate city like Milida, the death of a magi stir is like an earthquake, let alone the death at the hands of a 12-and-a-half-year-old child like me. Everyone outside is probably Kabul, the people of the family and his allies, the Gabru family, just wanted to ask themselves how they killed Lao Zizi. The key point was to tie themselves tightly and stand on the same front with them. Just looking at the lineup just now, Suchen smiled bitterly. After killing a dignified magister and a great noble of the empire did not want him, and the city lord's palace seemed to not exist, with no intention of arresting him in the Kabul family. Suchen didn't know whether he should be happy or because of this the empire is sad. From this incident, Suchen inferred that the empire may have fallen into chaos. And like Milida city, where families are brazenly killing each other in broad daylight, it is estimated that the entire empire has it. From judging from the history books I read in my previous life and the news I usually read, this is probably a microcosm of the power struggle between two or more Sunshans. In troubled times, I never imagined that I was born in troubled times. I didn't feel it at all in the small town of Balu before. 12 years passed peacefully and happily. Once in this big city, all kinds of hellish things and cruel things would happen. Suchen couldn't help but think, will he lead thousands of troops to fight? What about troubled times? All YY novels are like this. I have also traveled through time, and I, Suchen, should be the protagonist. The protagonists will not die, the protagonists are all very good, the protagonists all have many beauties, and the protagonists can all be tigers. As soon as the body shook, the younger brother bowed his head and bowed. What are you laughing at? Come for dinner. I made you your favorite chili fried pork. Come and eat. Sally walked in with the food. Suchen woke up from the struggle, smelled the fragrance of the rice, and his stomach growled. Suchen swallowed his saliva, grabbed the food and wolfed it down. Salai sat on Su opposite Chen. He looked carefully at Suchen's vulgar yet cute eating appearance, and said with a satisfied smile, "Is it delicious?" Suchen, with his mouth full of food, could only say twice and immersed himself in fighting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 739. Chapter 739. We are all in the same boat, so why should we distinguish ourselves? Suchen always ate like a starving ghost, and every meal was the largest meal for the whole family. Especially in the past few days, the appetite has been even bigger. Salai couldn't help pinching Suchen's arm and said strangely, "Brother Chen, look, you have really gained a lot of weight and are no longer as thin as before." Suchen tried hard to swallow the food and smiled. Said Xiao Salai, "Do you want to take a few bites?" "Fuck you, bad." Silly laughed and said. "Anyway, Brother Chen is becoming more manly as he grows older." Hee hee. Suchen also felt that he had indeed begun to grow stronger. He was no longer as thin as a branch, let alone a wheat straw. Maybe he was starting to grow. Suchen felt even more energetic when eating. Su was treated well after Chen finished eating. He wiped his mouth with satisfaction, dressed up and walked towards the hall. "Haha, little brother Suchen has come out, I will introduce you all first." When Kabul saw Suchen coming out, he clapped his hands and said to everyone. Kabul took Suchen's hand, pointed at an energetic old man next to him and said, "This is the elder swordsman Gabru, the patriarch of the Gabru family. He is full of fighting spirit and was able to take a direct blow from the great swordsman back then." Suchen perked up after hearing this, and bowed solemnly to Gabru, and said, "Young man, I have seen the leader of the Gabru tribe." "Ha ha ha ha. Little brother, there is no need to be polite. This is an era that respects strength. Since you can kill the Magi Stir alone, that old bastard Zez, then you should be brothers like us old guys." The old swordsman Gabru spoke quickly and laughed heartily. Then he looked at Suchen carefully, patted Suchen on the shoulder and said, "Well, what a terrible future." Suchen hurriedly said that he didn't dare. Kabul then introduced to Suchen the eldest son Liverpool duo behind Gabulu. He was a middle-aged, burly man, and a swordsman. He was as cheerful as his father. There was also Gabulu's youngest son, Li Wuli, was a great swordsman and good at business. Suchen felt that he was also a very shrewd person. Suchen couldn't even understand what he said for a while, and it took him a while to think about it. There was also Suchen who was stuck. Tumu swordsman, whom the Bull family had never seen before. After everyone was introduced, Suchen did not beat around the bush. With so many smart people, the seemingly cheerful old swordsman Gabru was probably also an old man. So he simply told everyone how he punched and killed Zez this morning. Of course, Suchen wouldn't talk about the trophies he obtained. He is not a shrewd or well-spoken person, and his favorite way to deal with things is to be direct. Use your fists to solve the problem. But you are not a fool. You only care about 2 points in everything. I can only take advantage and cannot suffer. No one can bully me. If you catch me, you will have to shed your skin even if you don't die." Zethas. In fact, everyone had already seen the tragic scene. They just wanted to see Suchen, who could kill the mighty magician by force, and also to gather him and tie him to his ship. Suchen looked at everyone, smiled and said, "Actually, I know why everyone is here. Let me put it this way, I have been in the same boat with everyone for a long time, so why should we be different from each other? Master Karl is the benefactor of my family and once saved my father and son. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 740. Chapter 740, Amazing. Threats from the Spita and Langian empires. Now we are living in Mr. Kabil's house, and I plan to live with Mr. Kabil in the future, but I don't know if Mr. Kabil will kick us out. Hee. Hey, as I said, didn't your little brother Suchen also save my son and grandchildren? From now on, we will be a family. If you can't live in anything, this is your home. Kabur scolded. At this time, Liverpool shouted with a loud voice, Brother Suchen, how about we discuss it sometime? Suchen was frightened, really frightened, and said truthfully. I also shamelessly call you a big brother from Liverpool. I really don't dare to come to the discussion. Brother, you are an upright swordsman. I don't know how badly I was beaten by that mad cow last time. I was hacked away with one strike. How dare I spar with you? Liverpool is so embarrassed he smiled and said. In fact, I had just become a swordsman not long ago, and only Uncle Tuma could compete with a powerful swordsman like Mad Bull. If Mad Bull and I faced off, I would probably only get beaten. Hee. Suchen thinks that this Liverpool man has a cheerful personality like his father. But he doesn't dare to underestimate him. Not to mention his strength as a swordsman, God knows if he is a scheming person. No one from a big family should be underestimated. Look. Everyone chatted for a long time, and finally the Kabil family and Suchen sent the Gabra family out. When Suchen came back, he pulled Karl into his room. Karl shook his head and said, I didn't expect that, I didn't expect that. Suchen, you are so powerful, even the mighty mage Zez fell into your hands. From today on, I am going to impress you. Alas, Uncle Karl, even you make fun of me. Don't you know best about my strength? If it weren't for the mental collision we studied together, what you saw today would be a corpse. I feel scared when I think about what happened this morning. Suchen said helplessly. Haha, you have to be good at that. But only a freak like you can kill Zeth. You have so much power without fighting spirit. Freak. Freak. Karl continued to shake his head and sighed. Suchen glared at him angrily and said to him solemnly, Uncle Karl, I'm the best with you. You have to tell me the truth about this. Karl also put away his expression and asked, what is it, so serious? This is the situation of our empire, the Gus Empire, and what faction do our two families belong to in the entire Gus? Uncle Karl, you can't fool me, we are all grasshoppers tied to the same stool. Karl glanced at Suchen in surprise and said, I can't tell. I usually just think that you are reliable and responsible, but I didn't expect that you have a sense of the overall situation. You really can't be judged by appearance. Why? Why do I feel that you are trying to harm me? Why don't you look at people's appearance? Aren't we people who have an overall view of the situation? Suchen was depressed. Ahem. Let me tell you what I know. Karl covered it up and said. Now the empire is indeed close to civil war. It is only because of the threats from the Spita and Langian empires that it has been fighting. However, this situation should not exist for long. Alas, no matter what, the Gus Empire may not be able to maintain its original territory.